Hi, my name is Charlie Andrew, and this is my studio. And today we're going through a Pro Tour session of an artist called Sivu and his song Lonesome. Well, with the whole album, we wanted to capture a much sort of more live feel to the whole record. And so a lot of the songs were based on a live take that Sivu would sing and perform either with guitar or piano. And then we would build the arrangement around that. With this song in particular, I was actually playing the drums while James, his name is, was playing guitar. So in my studio here, we've got various different booths, and I was set up in booth B, which is right in front of my control room here. And then there's a double window straight through to another booth, so we could watch each other as we performed. So a lot of the songs on this album were done without click. This one was done with click. We had a very slow click in our headphones. Sometimes when you have a slow click, it's very helpful because it does allow you to move around a little bit and be a bit freer with your performance, as opposed to a fast click, which can really start making you sound quite regimented and lose some of the feel. So let's start looking at the Pro Tour session at the top here, and I've got the drum kit. So you can probably see I've got 2 mics on the kick, 2 on the snare, got a stereo track here for the overheads, rack tom, floor tom, and then the sub for the kick, so that really three on your kick drum. And then I've just got a mono room mic here. So if I just play the drums, you can hear that I'm just playing with brushes. And my drum kit's an old Ludwig from the early 70s with a very big, well, it's 22 inches, it could be bigger, kick drum, which is sort of got minimal padding in it, so it sort of allows it to ring out and it's got lots of character. I'm not a big fan of dead kick drums that just have a thump and that's it. I'm a big fan of space around everything, so hopefully that brings you into the recording environment for the listener. You feels like you're brought into the space that it was recorded in, rather than hearing it in a sort of unnatural way. You hear it in a believable way, like you were at a gig or something. So with the drum kit, a lot of the sound is on this mono room mic here. So it's not that far removed from the final mix of the drum kit, if I bring them all back in. Really all I've done by bringing in the rest of the mics is a bit more punch on the kick drum. The snare hits are very minimal, very just lightly tapped. And a lot of that, again, if I go back to this, is coming through on the room mic. So to get that sound, I'm using various plugins to compress, and if I show you here, so this one's an EQ actually, where I've notched out a few tones that were ringing through quite heavily, which I didn't like. And I'm getting the bottom end actually of the kick drum from the spot mics. So I rolled off. So a bit of high pass filtering there. One thing to remember when you're recording drum kit is to check your phases. So you've got 2 mics on drums, or various mics on the kick drum, and the snare drum, to get the phases between them correct, and then the phases of them with the overheads, etc. So when you're sound checking, it's very important to check one, then the other, and then with your overheads as well, make sure that when your kick and snare are in with your overheads, they're all working the best they can. So just try, flick in and out of your phase reverse. So that's the drums. As you can hear, very sort of natural room sound. And as we move down, there's a shaker take here, which adds a little bit more motion to the song. As you can hear, it's quite a slow beat, very sort of relaxed. So they've got a shaker here, adding a sort of double time feel to the drums. I'm just playing the chorus at the moment, so you can hear some of the offbeats I'm putting in on the snare drum there. It helps lift the chorus, bring it up in sort of dynamic and in feel. Also, if I zoom in on the audio here, you can see that the bass part comes in on the first chorus. So before that, we've got the introduction, verse 1, bridge, no bass. So as soon as the chorus comes in, suddenly the frequency spectrum widens and the song feels like it lifts up. Now, I'm a big fan of things of imperfections in recordings. I like it a lot because it's something you don't often hear these days. So you can hear on this bass recording that the amp was crackling a lot. There was some problem. But I didn't feel obliged to fix it because it was adding a little bit of something quite unique to it, really. You can really hear the amp hissing as well, and I'm a big fan of that. So before the bass part actually starts, in the quiet sections, you probably hear that amp just hissing away in the background. I like to just keep the mics open as much as I can within reason. So again, it feels like you're in the room with the performers from the start. So that's the sort of drums and bass there. We'll move further down, there's an acoustic guitar. So this was recorded in a different room along with the drums. Okay. So that's the acoustic guitar. That's recorded quite simply, really. There's just one spot mic close to the acoustic. Sounds like this. So that would be somewhere between the neck and the sort of sound hole, as it were. And then we've got the stereo pair. So obviously widens up the image a little bit. A bit more clarity on it. That would be further up the neck. Most likely a pair of Sherps, actually, Sherps 21s. So the spot mic's adding a little bit more warmth to that. So if I bring in the drum, shaker. So as you can tell, it's a very chilled out song. Lots of space, and that slow click allowing us to groove still. So that's the main rhythm section. I move further down, we've got these electric guitar sort of marking moments. So these really help to lift the chorus as it enters. And I've double tracked them to really lift them up and get the stereo image. So you can see here, I've got a close mic on the guitar amp and a room on the guitar amp there as well. So let's listen to the guitar sound here. So you can hear that's hard pound left and right. So you get a sort of real spread there. So that's with a close mic and room on each take. If I just show you the room sound, so a bit more distant, and then blend that in with the spot mic on the amp. Again, just brings a bit more of a real sonic to everything. I mean, you never really listen to a band with a guitar amp right next to one ear and the kick drum next to the other ear. There's space between you and the musician, so that's what I like to get on my recordings. So that mixed in with the rhythm section that we've got here. We go from the bridge, or halfway through the bridge, you'll hear that guitar marking really helps lift the entrance of the chorus. This marks each chord changer. So it's quite an effective tool. So that's what's happening there, basically in the rhythm section. So let's look at all the other bits we've got going on. So when this song was written by James, there was quite a catchy electric guitar hook, which is a very important part of the song. So it's important to get the sound of this right. Again, lots of room mics. I've even got guitar room and then far room. So I would have opened up doors into other booths far away from the guitar amp so we could hear. In fact, let me bring that up so we can really hear loads of space. So that's the far room. This brings in the closer room. It's quite a subtle difference there, probably didn't use much of that. Guitar amp. And actually, I've ended up using the DI a bit in there as well. Quite often I won't use the DI, but in this instance I felt that it added something to it. So that's in the verse, it's quite a major hook. If I move on to the chorus, so this is obviously rhythm, but these again are quite a major part of the hook. So I bring in the rhythm section again. Big fan of dynamics, so you can hear there right at the end of the chorus, it comes right back down again in level. And we're recording this wind organ as well, which gives us a bit more flavour. And then the second verse starts. We go back to that chorus though, to give it a bit more weight. This is also, the electric guitar hook is doubled as well. Okay, so that's basically the main body of the chorus. Now there's also a couple more hooks here. So you see these tracks that say ya, ya, ya. So that's basically vocal take recorded 3 times. So we've got double track, triple track. We did these actually while we were recording the strings. So we just put up a single mic in the control room, recorded this. So that's just a single mic through my old 1950s Vortexian mixer, which adds a lovely sort of character to things. It breaks up nicely and just has an old school feel to it. So that was triple tracked, creating this sort of effect. Just sounds like more people. A bit more panning, and widen the image a little bit. So that's one of the main hooks in the chorus. But we also got this string hook here. So that's doubling up the IARs, but then we've got this counter here. So that's an important little counter hook to fill up the space in between vocals. So those are the main hooks, obviously not the vocal line, but underneath the vocal line, which we'll come to. We've got sort of various octave ups and downs and harmonies to what's happening there. So that's why there's so many tracks. But again, if I bring in drums, shaker, bass, acoustic, all the stuff, all of it really, apart from the vocals, you can hear it all together. So that's the chorus minus the vocal. So let's look at the vocals for the chorus. So if I just play the main vocal.
Heaven knows I'm heartless half the time.
So when I record vocals, again, I have a close mic and then I'll be capturing something in the room as well. For the main vocal here, I've found a balance between the two and then consolidated that to one track. And that's my main vocal comp. So for the choruses, I've double tracked that just to flesh it out a bit more, give it a bit more presence, as well as record an octave down with the room as well.
Heaven knows I'm heartless half the time.
So again, that just helps lift it and make it sit in the mix. So we've got quite a few things happening now in the mix there. So we've got all the rhythm section we talked about and the different string and vocal hooks. So let's listen to all that together. Okay, so that's the chorus, or chorus one. When the chorus finishes, we break into piano hooks, and that's the only thing I haven't explained yet on this one. So this goes like this. Okay, you probably heard there the reed organ getting very loud towards the end of that section, which I'm a big fan of again, and growing to a point where you almost feel a bit uncomfortable and then it disappears. But you've got this lovely piano hook here, so we've got two recordings of it. Got one octave up and one on the main octave where it was written. Just stereo pair on the piano. I've got a Yamaha upright in the live room there. It's a very lovely sounding piano, nice and warm. Yeah, and taking the front off it so you can get up personal with the strings. And you can see on the automation here, I've had to ride a few bits. I'd rather ride up a few notes on these sort of things than compress it heavily. Potentially has the same sort of effect, but it's just leveling out the notes and the performance a little bit. But sometimes I just like to do it manually, and you get exactly what you want that way. Great, so that's the session. Like I say, we've got the different trackings and different elements to that. One thing I should mention in the chorus, when everything's happening, to create space for everything, panning is quite a big part of that. So the ya hook, that's kind of pan to one side, the strings to the other side, vocals down the middle, that sort of thing. Just to allow everything to have its own space. Because it's quite tricky when you've got various elements. But hopefully when you've got space in the performance, then there's space in the mix. And also mixes can really kind of mix themselves if you find you've captured the right ingredients. So that's a really important thing. If you're finding yourself sort of constantly just changing your mix with little fine tunes, you're not quite happy, it could indicate that what you've actually recorded isn't right, rather than your mix isn't right. If you've recorded everything correctly, it can kind of mix itself, and the vocals a couple of dBs louder or whatever won't make any difference. It's just a louder vocal in a track that still sounds great. So as the session is building up, there will be sort of regions sort of accumulating and new tracks emerging as we decide to record something new. And it may start to get a little bit visually messy, so it's good to sort of stay on top of your game and keep things organised as much as possible. So I like to keep things in groups, so like the drums are all grouped and they're all colour coordinated purple here. So if I solo one track in the drums, they're all soloed. If I go into the automation here. It all comes up. So I can work on the drums as a whole. They're all then being routed to their own auxiliary, where on this, in this instance, I've done a bit more EQing. On this one actually is interesting, I rolled off a little bit at the top end on the drums to hopefully make them sound a little bit more classic, a bit more old school. Don't want things to sound sort of too bright and modern, not on this track anyway. If I've got edits on the drums and then I consolidate them, I'll make a new playlist for them. So if I just go to the drums here and go duplicate, it's made a new playlist, which is exactly the same as the one underneath now. Sorry, there we go. But let's just say I've done a load of edits on this. I can go to refer back to a playlist before or after that, which will show me what, go back to before, if that makes sense. So I can, if I do a load of edits and muck it all up, at least have it as it was before to go back to. Always important to keep saving as different versions, so you can go back to a certain point where you're happy, where you were definitely happy, because there are definitely times when you'll be mixing and getting into the session that you maybe lose sight a little bit and get carried away, and then when you zoom out, come to it with a new fresh pair of ears, you don't actually like what you've just spent a few hours doing. So to be able to go back is very important. Also, nothing to be ashamed of. Don't ever feel guilty that you've spent hours on something and it's not made it better, it's made it worse, because that's sometimes what happens when you've got tired ears. You just need to be able to make sure, acknowledge that, and move backwards to move forwards, if that makes sense. You can see that on this session, all the audio files are being consolidated. So while I'm working on it, there'll probably just be regions that start and finish where the audio is. This has been consolidated for a reason, that this, if I hand this over to be mixed by someone else or something like that, they receive all the audio files starting at the same place, so they can bring it into whatever platform they're using, whether it's Logic or Pro Tools or whatever. They'll probably at that point then strip silence, so that the computer's not trying to process all the audio at the same time. So yeah, even though it's blank, it does have to think about something. And also it makes it nice and neat and tidy at the moment, so nice colour coordinate for the groups over here. Again, when you receive a Pro Tools session like this and you haven't seen or heard the song before, it's nice to have it organised in a way that helps you work out what's what. And that's the recording session, Lonesome by Sivu. I'm Charlie Andrew, thanks for watching.